Welcome to the Buddha Belly Life Podcast, empowering purpose, mind to microbiome, a mind-body-soul approach to life, starting with your gut. Join me, Coach Britt, as I interview top wellness entrepreneurs and microbiome science geeks, and together we mastermind a bucket list kind of life while building the ultimate vessel to live it in. Welcome to your Buddha Belly Life. Don't forget to take notes. Hey guys, it's Coach Britt, and welcome to the first episode of the Buddha Belly Life podcast. And as much as I would love to be talking today to you just on my own, I thought it would be much better to bring in a guest interviewer today to feature me. I know how conceited on the first episode, the first month's worth of episodes of the podcast. So I want to introduce you to my good friend and professional, Trent Grandstaff. Now, he and I have connected through his extensive work in media, his work with YouTube, his work with videography, and then his own personal journey through mental health and finding wellness to be, and personal wellness and health to be such a foundation of healing and purpose. So thank you, Trent, for agreeing to put up with me for a piece of your Monday.
Well, thanks for having me. Hope you don't mind my dog in the background.
That's all right.
She'll only be really distracting. That's all.
Trent and I do each other favors. In fact, like a year or two ago that I helped do a DUI commercial for you?
Yeah. Well, that was
we won't
2
be
years
adding
ago,
a link to that.
Yeah. Last year was the pandemic, but 2 years ago got hired to make a commercial for a company. I think it was in North Dakota that helped people who got DUIs. So.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
So we're just swapping favors back and forth, and here we are.
Yeah, we entrepreneurs got to help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. Just to hit on that, I've been through my own journey of mental health. I got married a couple years ago. I was actually on a medication called venlafaxine before I got married, just to help level me out. And I experienced for the first time the real nightmare of trying to go through the pharmaceutical avenue. And not that it's not. Doesn't have its place. There are some people it works really well for. For me, it did not. And so as I was going through this journey, connected with Brittany and started learning more about how the gut connects with the brain and how really they're symbiotic, and how if you don't have good gut health, you're going to have a really hard time staying happy, staying feeling good. Because when the gut's all messed up, your brain's going to be all messed up. So it's a little bit about me and how we are here. But Brittany, go ahead. Who are you? What are you about?
So I'm Coach Britt. I am now Brittany Oliver-Baker. But if you see any of my books, my published book, Buddha Belly, A Mind, Body, Soul Approach to Health, starting with the gut, or my book, #MyEpic Year, which Trent did shot the cover of for that too.
Right.
It'll all be under Brittany Oliver, but I'm referred to by my coaches as Coach Britt. I have a school called the Holistic Wellness Coaching Academy, where I train and certify individuals and coaches in gut health and mindset strategy. That's a bit about where I am now and what I'm doing now. Now we've got the podcast rolling out. We're in year 5 of the school, and we're doing a lot with mental health. In some later episodes, we'll get to talking a little bit about where we're going with individual wellness and stuff. But now I am a mom of 6 kids in a blended family, 3 of which I birthed out of my own body. And I am survivor of anxiety and depression. Now, I wouldn't say an overcomer 100%, right? Like nothing is what it is, but
a little bit things interesting, right?
Yeah. Nothing is that easy. We don't just heal, right? And that's I think the whole point of this podcast. That's probably the biggest thing to touch on right now, is just the point of this podcast is to empower people with education and resources, and not just for health and wellness, but the correlation between, basically it's like life coaching through a podcast. Like, what is it how do we really want to live? And after spending a whole year being locked inside and, struggling to live in our own heads and in small spaces and without jobs and in fear and all the things, I think it's time where a lot of people want to like break out of that and live their life. But how do we do it if we don't have the mental health, if we don't have the physical health or capacity, or if, we're fearing illness and disease on a regular basis? Are we really able, to live, like we say, our bucket list kind of life? Probably not. Right.
Absolutely.
So, and my childhood is a great example of that. I had panic attacks as early. Mental health is my passion. So obviously gut health is my forte. Business and all the entrepreneurial stuff is my forte. But as a kid, I had panic attacks as early as age 4 that I could remember. And they would happen on just a nightly basis where I always thought I was dying, because a child can't rationalize why they feel what they feel. It's sheer terror,
Some adults can't rationalize why they feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can't. And so it's like, as a kid, when you're going through that stuff, it's one of the number one reasons that like grown men in their 30s and 40s check themselves into the ER is panic attacks, thinking, and women, but especially men, thinking that they're having a heart attack, because the physical symptoms and everything that they're going through would suggest a potential heart issue in most people's rational mind. So if you can imagine that mental health is hitting our kids now at like age 12 and 13 is when it's most rampant now occurring. I mean, you can only imagine what it's like going through that as a kid. So that's the start of my story. So even though I help people in all aspects of how the mind-gut connection and gut health in general is connected to wellness, the mental health piece is totally my passion, which is why I picked Trent here today to host this episode, because it's a great place to start.
And I'm so glad that you are doing a podcast, because the wealth of knowledge that you have, and this isn't just to brown nose you on your podcast, but really, like, as I have gone through this journey, I've gone to my medical doctor, I've gone to my primary physicians, and it's just kind of, I don't know, do you want to try this pill? I don't know, maybe you should go talk to somebody, and it's all just stuff to solve that one issue. Meanwhile, it's causing other issues. And so to be able to share your knowledge about this in a mass way, I think is so cool, because especially after what we just went through, and still going through with the pandemic, mental health. I mean, I guarantee people weren't in there eating vegetables in their homes. They're panic eating, they're stress eating, right? So it's ice cream and Ruffles and, just all this stuff that makes us feel good in the moment. And I think that we're only just now beginning to see the wave that's going to come from this. And so I think that being able to share this, is so exciting. And also, like, I'm excited to see how our podcasts relate once mine is back up and running, with the mental health stuff. Beyond This is what the podcast is called. And just, really being on that mission. And I think that having these platforms, we saw the early stages of social media where it's like, look at the food that I'm eating. It's so good. And here's my dog. But now we're starting to understand
my 10 bottles of wine.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Sharing with the world that you're an alcoholic, but everybody thinks it's cute. So,
I know.
It's, it's
acceptable if it's classy, Trent. Wine is classy, right?
Yeah. As long as you have a cute shirt that talks about your alcoholism, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think that, like, being able to utilize this space, utilize this platform to share this message, I'm just excited to see where this goes. And I'm excited that I get to be on the first episode, because really pretty sure there's only up from here. So the pressure is pretty low. But talk to me about the mental health and the link to the gut. Let's go into that a little bit. Not too much though, but just
well, and just so people don't get confused, like, as opposed to, so Trent's podcast is very focused on mental health.
Yeah.
While mental health is my passion, the foundation of Buddha Belly Life is really about living again. And the foundation, and in order to live our best life, we have to be healthy in all aspects. That's how Buddha Belly was written, right? It was a mind, body, soul approach to health, because it was all aspects of a person that are necessary to really live optimally. And if we eat super clean and we follow a gut health diet and we run like crazy and exercise, but we neglect the areas of stress and trauma that we don't cope with and all that kind of stuff, right? We're not going to see the full effects of life. And so the purpose really that we're trying to cultivate here is the life coach, the dreaming big. And what does your ultimate life look like? If you could, I ask all my coaches this, right? If you could rub a genie lamp and get whatever life you wanted, do what you wanted for a career, do what you wanted with your life, what does that look like? And then what's keeping us from chasing that? So that's what we do here is we eliminate all those barriers that are keeping us from chasing that. And health, our physical health and our mental health, whether we like it or not, is at the forefront. It is the foundation of life for us. And so we have to talk about that. And gut health just happens to be this just incredible center of everything. Just to clarify.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good clarification. Because for mine, I want to share like the whole purpose of my podcast is having a really authentic conversation around mental health, not just from the diagnosis and like, here's some solutions, but like, here's what I personally experienced. Because so much of that I thought was just normal. I was born into it, right? So I just thought like, oh no, it's normal to puke every morning because you're so anxious before you go to school, right? It's normal to feel like your throat is seizing up as an adult is talking to you, right? That's just part of life. And like, had I been able to listen to a podcast of someone going, that's not normal, like you, and not to like go, hey, you're not normal, but like, hey, this is a problem. This is holding you back. And here's how you can work on it. So, yeah. And
seeing it in our children at an early age, like you say, like I was like you, I cried every day at school and no one knew why I was crying. Like, and I couldn't articulate it. They were asking me to explain to them what was going on with me. And because we haven't had enough understanding over health with our children, not just mental health and how that looks. It looks like the kid that has a stomach ache all the time or who cries every day at school or who's maybe acting out and doesn't sleep good and is up 400 times a night and can't tell you why. That's how kids manifest stuff. And we have to think of how we are contributing to their health for the better or the worse by what we are feeding them. When we understand that brain gut connection, when we understand how they were meant to be raised on real food, when we understand that they are susceptible to stress in their development, then we can understand them better and we can create healthier adults, so they don't have to do as much work as we have to do. I look back, I'm like, dang, I'm 36. Like, can I get paid for some of this? Maybe I am now. Maybe that's...
I think you are. You are getting paid for it now. I am. Yeah. No, but absolutely. Like, and that's, I'm very like, I'm a creative, but I also have this very analytical mind. I'm usually a mess is what that means, but
like psychoanalytical, right? Where you you can hone in on everything that's going on.
And like business analytical. So like, I think of like lost potential, right? Lost potential income and like all that stuff. So the potential that a human has from a child, like if you look at a child that's born or raised in like a traumatic situation, is fed a poor diet, is struggling with ADHD, is struggling with just impulse control and emotional control. And then the work that they have to do to balance themselves out to finally start chasing after their dreams and their goals. Like I'm 36 this year and I'm just now like feeling like, okay, I'm finally scratching the surface of like really working on these really big things, because the first 35, 36 years was figuring all this stuff out. Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I get so emotional? Why do I just have no self-discipline and no self-control? Right. And then like going from because it always starts with the blaming of self, right? Like it's my fault. I can't do this. And then finally you move out of that and you're like, maybe it's not 100%. Maybe it's like at the end of the day, we have to have extreme ownership over this stuff. You have to do it yourself and you have to take ownership that this is something I want, because nobody can make you do it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your coping mechanisms are you. Right. And that you're choosing to do that. You have to go back to the source of like, what am I eating? What am I thinking? How am I sleeping? How am I hydrating? By the way, I need to drink some water. Hang on. That just reminded me. I haven't been drinking water today.
You're totally right about that though.
So, and then like, once you go back and you start working through that, I mean, it's amazing. I just look at you and I, we're very similar in age, have had previous marriages and like, because we've had to work through our stuff. And now like the potential that we're starting to see unleash onto the world, like what would have happened if we started this in our 20s, right?
Well, and I'll raise you that. I'll raise you one here. Cause like when it comes to my kids, I agree with you on that. Like I don't want to make them have to work as hard as I had to work. I don't want them to suffer the way that I had to suffer in order to become who they're going to be and pray to God that they become healthy adults. Like, no. So I'm going to take responsibility since I know that. Yeah. But as far as I go, lost potential, but it's like, who would we be though? Like really, I mean, if we didn't have to hurt and suffer, would people trust you to help them? You know what I mean? Those things were given to us like for part of our story. And it's like, who would ever be out there to help anyone if they didn't suffer and overcome? And sure, it would have been nice if it was earlier in life before 2 divorces and, a whole lot of garbage that I had to learn. Good people go through hard, messy stuff. It doesn't make you a bad person, right?
Yeah. And there's definitely that aspect. Yeah. You've got to honor your experience and you got to be grateful for everything that life has given you. But there is that aspect of like,
once it clicks,
what if we can shorten this? What if we can shorten this instead of making everybody? And I think that's what you're trying to do is you're like, hey, here's a free podcast that you can tune into and you're going to be getting information that took me years to accumulate and process. And I mean, that's what's so
a lot of money worth of therapy. Like, let me just like make the most of how much I paid for therapy, please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm in a course right now. It's a 4-month course at $1,500 a month that dives into all the deepest, darkest crap that is still, even with all the work I've done, right? Yeah. It's still lingering. But now I'm starting to get a deeper understanding. And I just go, oh my goodness. And like, for me, I'm not going to give that information away on my podcast, but I would love to at least give some pointers because not everybody can afford $1,500 a month, right? No. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only reason I decided this is for me is because I did the Wim Hof method all winter long in the freezing lake. And I'm like, let's see what this is all about. I think I'm ready for this, but so I think like, being able to help shorten that and be able to offer this information to people at no cost is amazing. And with that said, tell us what the audience, which is going to be me as well, I'll be part of the audience. What can we expect in the coming months from this podcast? So we've got some cool people lined up, fingers crossed that everything goes well. What we're really connecting to are really top wellness minds in the area of microbiome science. I'm really blessed to be connected to some really keen players that are involved in a really, really, really high area of microbiome science, and some of their colleagues who have agreed to give some rad education. Awesome. And then also a lot of really great wellness entrepreneurs, which again, I'm blessed to have a lot of those in my circle. But people who have literally their personal story that's led to their own health has been the catalyst of what they now get to do for a living. So again, it's that creating like that, to be able to do something with your life that gives you fulfillment, that gives you purpose, that you're passionate about, and that uses your story. I mean, and that makes you happy. What more could we ever ask for, right? I mean, we don't raise our kids and ask them that. Like, what gives you purpose in life? What do you want to be when you grow up? What looks good on paper? And then they're all miserable. And it's time we start asking a different question. Yeah. So that's what they can expect here. And like I said, we're going to delve more into gut health. We do have a foundation of gut health because it's just such an emerging piece of science. We're learning that the gut microbiome, is connected to almost every area of wellness. It's responsible for majority of our mental health hormones. It's responsible for our immune system and our functions in our body, so many different things. And I'm going to go into that in a bit in the second segment of this month's feature. We're going to talk more about the gut health. So, yeah. Well, guys, I think that is a good place to end this episode. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me do this with you. Brittany. And guys, make sure you tune in to the next episode. Should be dropping here shortly.
Thanks for joining us in this week's Buddha Belly Life podcast. For more episodes, coaching resources, and gut programs, visit BuddhaBellyLife.com. Don't forget to put us in your schedule for next week. And remember, keep showing up and enjoy the journey.